Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you all had a relaxing holiday weekend, and welcome back to Georgia Tech's 2023 Spring Lunch and Learn Lecture Series. My name is Dr. Billy D. Brown. I'm a Senior Research Faculty Education and Workforce Development Director for GTMI, Georgia Tech Manufacturing Institute, and I'm excited to continue hosting this series and continue to provide value for the GTMI community. Before I introduce today's speaker, I'll first introduce GTMI, give some brief instructions for the audience. GTMI is one of 11 Georgia Tech interdisciplinary research institutes on campus, and our focus is on manufacturing research, development, and deployment. We help tackle the grand challenges of today's manufacturers and assist partners in moving innovations from the lab to the market. GTMI has a wide variety of facilities on near campus for basic research. Also nearby on 14th Street for more applied research in our advanced manufacturing pilot facility. GTMI's mission includes education and workforce training, collaborative partnerships with industry, academia, and government, as well as thought leadership. GTMI hosts a Lunch and Learn lecture series each semester. These sessions are excellent opportunities for Georgia Tech students, faculty, as well as a global manufacturing community to learn and share advanced manufacturing knowledge. So today actually is our final lecture for the semester. We did have a little bit of technical difficulties coming in. And so if you're in the audience virtually, please let us know if you're having trouble hearing us, because we have a little bit of a different setup, okay? So you won't be able to see a video online, but please, if you have, and we may not be able to hear you, so please put your questions in the chat if you have questions. Our speaker will address questions from the audience as well during or after the presentation. We want this to be interactive, so please ask questions. So today it is my pleasure to introduce Ward Broom, who will educate us today about building a successful robotics startup. Ward Broom is the lead catalyst for the automation and robotics vertical at the Advanced Technology Development Center, or ATDC, Georgia's best technology business incubator, located here on Tech Square. The automation and robotics vertical at ATDC recruits and coaches startups and solutions that utilize hard tech, AI, and connected devices. Ward is a serial entrepreneur with significant manufacturing technology experience in bringing products to market, managing business growth, and advising startups. As a co-founder of the healthcare technology company IPA, Ward served as executive VP and COO and was an integral part of taking the company from product concept to market leader and setting up in-house product development and manufacturing operations. IPA provided an integrated hardware, software, dispensing and retrieval system for hospital scrubs and linens. These products solve a significant pain point in hospital operations and are currently installed in more than 1,000 hospitals across the United States and internationally. IPA was sold to a Fortune 500 company, Roper, back in 2014, Roper Technologies. Prior to IPA, Ward was co-owned and president of Design and Manufacturing Services, an electromechanical product development and contract manufacturing firm. Ward holds bachelor's and master's degrees in mechanical engineering at Georgia Tech with an emphasis in manufacturing and automation. Ward also has an executive MBA from Georgia Tech with a focus on startups and management of technology. Ward holds multiple technology patents and actively involved in the Atlanta startup community as a mentor, advisor, and investor. Today's presentation will focus on the key elements required to build a successful robotic startup. It will begin by discussing the importance of identifying a market need and developing a clear value proposition, and then touch on designing a minimum viable product, funding, building a team, and scaling. Examples of successful robotics startups will also be explored. Ward, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Thanks for everybody being here today, and thank you for the introduction. So this is kind of what we'll go through here today, and Billy did a great job with my background, so we'll go through that very quickly. give you a little overview of ATDC, the Advanced Technology Development Center, which is here at the Synergy building over at on 5th Street and Spring Street. We'll talk about really what is a startup. And we'll also talk about go into customer discovery, which is the most critical phase in getting a startup up and running. And we'll talk through those different phases of the business model canvas, testing the problem, testing the solution, verifying and pivoting. And then we'll also get into execution. We'll touch a little bit on execution, which is the absolute last phase you should be doing. So Billy D, again, went through my background. I actually, by the way, started my career at Scientific Atlanta. Many don't know Scientific Atlanta. It was sort of the initial technology company in the Atlanta area, the metro Atlanta area. They were big in satellite communications. A lot of Georgia Tech people came out of there. And many of the technology spinoffs in the Atlanta area came out of Scientific Atlanta. So we talked about contract design and manufacturing and assembly services that I did for many years, which exposed me to a lot of startups, a lot of different industries. And then IPA, which had an automated dispensing and retrieval system for linens and scrub suits in hospitals. And so a fairly complex piece of equipment to solve a pretty straightforward problem, but it was a big problem in the industry. And that product is still being manufactured out in Duluth, Georgia, where the facility is. I'm also a member of the ATA, which is an angel investing group for startups here in the Atlanta area. Personally, I've done about 20 investments to date. I've also served as after IPA COO of Intent Solutions, which was a handheld medication dispensing device to secure medications directed at the opioid market. Also served as CEO of CathAid, which is another medical device, which is a securement device for intravenous catheters. And currently serving as a catalyst at ATDC, amongst other things that I've got going on. So let's talk a little bit about ATDC, which again is Georgia's, the state of Georgia's incubator, startup incubator. And it's been around since about 1980, one of the oldest, if not the oldest in the nation. And we're focusing on startups and helping startups become economically viable. And the reason for that, the state of Georgia wants us to have successful companies that are building and hiring people and generating economic benefit for the state of Georgia. Graduate companies that have actually graduated from ATDC through the years have raised over $3 billion, and they bring about $12 billion in state income. And the purpose of ATDC, we talk about learning and launching and scaling and succeeding. So these are sort of our cornerstones for companies. We have coaching, we have education programs for companies when you come in. If you're trying to get a startup off the ground, we will help you launch. We have one-on-one coaching for companies who are a little bit further along, who have a minimum viable product. Once you get some traction, we have the resources to help you scale in the industry and ultimately succeed and continue to grow your company and graduate from ATDC. So about 90% of ATDC portfolio companies that have graduated are still in business 5 years after. So there's 3 different tiers to ATDC. There is educate, there is accelerate, and there is signature. And then ultimately you graduate from signature. So educate is basically anyone in this room could actually sign up as an educate company. It's very low cost to sign up, and it gives you access to all of our education programs and also to the mentors at ATDC. Once you've gotten a little bit of traction, you have a minimum viable product, you're ready to jump into this full time and quit your day job, then you can become an accelerate company at ATDC. And that's where you get a dedicated coach for your company in your area. And actually you have access to all the Catalyst coaches. We have about 8 coaches at ATDC full-time that are there to support you and your company. Once you get into revenue, let's say you're at about $1 million annual recurring revenue, maybe more, you would then get into the signature area, signature company. And you then would get access not only to the catalyst, but also to EIRs, or entrepreneurs in residence, that can provide you with additional expertise and help you make even more connections in the industry. And finally, you graduate. And once you've graduated, you are well on your way to having a sustainable business, which is what we're trying to get you to. These figures are a little bit dated, but they're fairly accurate. About 140 portfolio companies, 35 in Signature, just over 100 in Accelerate, over 300 in Educate. 2021, we graduated 10 companies. Last year, we actually graduated 13 companies. And again, it's all about what we call the 5 C's. So you've got community, so you have the whole startup community there at ATDC. We have office space, about 50,000 square feet of office space, where startups can lease that space and be there within that community. And then you have access directly to the catalysts who are there as well. You've got the coaching, you've got the curriculum, you've got the connections, and again, the commons is the space that we're talking about there. So let's talk about startups. That's why I'm here today, and talk about, this is a little different than what you're usually used to seeing. I think a lot of times you're looking at technologies in manufacturing that may already be well established, or may be in R&D mode. Could be a lot of different types of things. We're going to talk about startups today, and actually getting those ideas into the marketplace. So how do you do that? And although the title is for robotics, it actually can apply to any number of verticals that are out there. So all of this started with Steve Blank, who had created multiple startups. This was back in the 90s, I believe, early 2000s. And, he had a lot of pain points, and he had some successful startups, but he had a lot of pain points along the way. So he decided to write a book, basically giving more guidance on how to successfully bring a startup into the marketplace. And then out of that, he also wrote Startup Owner's Manual. He also, and another book came out by Eric Ries called The Lean Startup. And that has to do not only with doing customer discovery and understanding what market you're going into, but it also helps you develop and apply lean principles in your product development as well. So what is a startup? Let's kind of start there. Does anybody want to take a stab at telling me what they think a startup is? Any takers? Nobody brave enough? Does anybody have a startup here? Anybody ever done a startup? I'm sorry?
To start something from the
You've worked
scratch.
one. Okay, so what would you say a startup is?
It is
To start something from the scratch and building to try some
Very good.
service or
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
platform. Yeah.
Absolutely. So a formal definition of startup is a temporary organization that's designed to search for a scalable and repeatable business model. Okay, that's the key. It's not an idea. It's not a technology. You're trying to find a scalable business model. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you, but when you at the investor level, investors don't care about the technology. Okay, they care about the business model. That's all they care about. So startups are not smaller versions of larger companies. Okay, very it's not. In other words, the larger companies have a lot of infrastructure and such. That is not what a startup is. Startup is very early. You're still searching for a new business model, an unknown or a new business model out there. So very early stage. So some examples of robotic startups specifically, and these are all in the metro Atlanta area, just so you guys are aware. So there's one called Slip Robotics, which is a really interesting technology. They have significant traction in the marketplace. They're still early, but they're getting significant traction. Their value proposition is all about creating return on investment by automating trailer loading and unloading. And I'm talking tractor trailers, so 53-foot tractor trailer trucks. So when you think about loading a tractor trailer with pallets, if you guys have ever been exposed to a warehouse, forklifts are sitting there taking pallets on and off the trucks, okay? Many times. And there's lots of challenges with that. Not only is that time consuming, but it's also a safety issue. Forklifts can literally fall off the dock and cause problems. They can run into the side of the truck, damage the goods, all types of things. So what Slip Robotics has done is they've created this platform, an 8-foot wide by 16-foot long platform that resides outside of the truck. Forklifts load pallets onto that device, the Slip Robotics device, and then it autonomously loads itself onto the truck. And you can get 3 of these on each truck. So it significantly reduces the amount of time it takes to load those trucks. And it also eliminates the safety issues. Once the truck arrives at the other end, they offload from that truck. And their value proposition is really geared towards distribution warehouses that not going cross country, because you don't want these devices going cross country, but usually shorter runs, within the state, within the metro area. Another company called Software. This is all about automating the process for manufacturing t-shirts. And when you think about t-shirts, you're like, that's kind of boring, but a lot of people wear t-shirts, and there's over 20 operations involved in the manufacture of a t-shirt. The material is very fine. It's very difficult to handle. There's some very complex sewing that goes on. And this is all done overseas. And if you look at how the material goes and how, t-shirts are transported overseas multiple times through processing before they wind up in the store, it's a very expensive process. So what Software has set out to do is to completely automate that process. No hands touch the material all the way through the final fabrication of the t-shirt. And his vision, and this is funded by NSF funding at this point, in the tens of millions of dollars, his vision is to actually have this near the cotton fields, the source of the material, and then the material then rolls off, it's ginned, it goes into his machines, and a t-shirt comes out on the other end. Very complex process, really interesting to see what's going on. In another company, a third example is Greensy. So this is a company who is basically servicing the landscape marketplace. They have come up with a solution that helps automate almost any riding lawnmower that's out there in the marketplace. And they've also gotten significant traction and multiple contracts out there. Their business model is really interesting, but another example of a successful company. But the problem that we see is that a lot of companies, people that are trying to do startups, they fail. 9 out of 10 startups fail, okay? And the question is, why do they fail? And they basically fail because they try to get ahead of themselves. They're so focused on the technology. They're so focused in manufacturing the product, in creating a physical idea of what their product is. They get out there without understanding who's going to buy the product. That's the big problem that's out there. That's why startup fails. They confuse the search with the execute. And if you look at how that's broken down and you start looking at the what Steve Blank had come up with, there's the first phase, which is called search, which is all about discovering your customer and validating the marketplace. And if you don't find a fit there, you pivot and then you go test your idea again. Okay. And you keep doing that until you have found a viable business model, something that probably has a shot at surviving. Only after you've done all that, and that takes a while to do you execute, do you actually start spending money. You want to spend as little money. You don't want to quit your day job. Okay. And you want to spend as little money as you can in this first phase of search before you get to the execute phase. And that execute phase, if you would, is sort of when with ATDC, you come into the accelerate level with in that execute phase. Okay. So that's really an important differentiation. So you see customer discovery there on the left. So what is customer discovery? So when you think about product development, and a lot of your engineers and very technical in nature, so you understand about product development, you understand what goes into research, R&D, all that kind of stuff. And there's processes for doing that. There's processes for iterating on that. and getting it right. Well, the customer discovery process is really designed to be an approach to customer development. So you'll hear customer discovery when you get into the startup world. Have you done customer discovery? So it is another process for validating your business model. So, and it's really not, and these next slides really emphasize the point. So it's not about whether or not you can build your product. You can build just about everything. You can program just about anything. You can create just about any app that's out there, okay? Technology continues to march on. It's not whether or not you can do that. The question is, should you really build it or not? Okay, because if you don't have a market, you don't have a sustainable business model around that, there's no reason to build that product unless you just got a lot of money and you just want to do it and you're retired and you're having fun, okay? But if you really want to build a viable business, you have to do customer discovery. You have to make sure that there is someone out there that is willing to buy that, because they will not come, okay? If you build it, unlike the movie, they will not come, okay? Or very few times will they actually come, will the customers come. So the products die, not because we failed to build out the solution, okay? It's because you fail to solve a big enough problem. In other words, a pain point people are looking to solve, and you fail to attract those customers in there. So that is the reason why products die. It's not about the idea. It's not about the technology. It's all about the problem. It's all about the market. And it's all about the people that are going to buy your technology, buy your product that's out there. Okay. What is their situation? Do they really have a strong enough pain point? And is that pain point big enough? Are there enough people with the same pain point to make a viable business? And the biggest problem that we see with entrepreneurs, people that are technologists, people that are in R&D that are out there, is you end up falling in love with your technology. You think your technology is what people want, but that's what you think. It's not what other people think. And the worst thing you can do is to go do customer discovery with friends and family, because friends and family don't want to disappoint you. They know you, they know who you are, they know you put a lot of effort into things. They're going to tell you that's a great idea, okay? Question you need to ask them is, are you willing to invest in this and put money in this and help me build this? Okay, that will tell you very quickly what they really think about getting into that product and whether or not you should do that. So, by the way, if any questions along the way, please raise your hand. Happy to stop. But if you have questions along the way, if you miss something or don't understand something, please let me know. So customer discovery starts with the business model canvas, okay? And this is a big part of the lean startup. Every company that comes through ATDC has a business model canvas. Even when that company becomes a viable business, it's grown, you should still have a business model canvas, okay? And early on, what you're doing is you're hypothesizing about, okay, what is my business model? What is this business model looking like? You create that hypothesis, you go out and you test it, you iterate, you come back, you change. And you draw a business model canvas, which early on is all a guess, okay? But at least you have an idea about what's going on with your business. And this is what the business model canvas looks like, okay? We'll go through each one of these areas here. There's 9 areas on here to go through, but we'll go through those quickly. So customer segments, that's one of them. So who are your most important customers? What are their archetypes? Building a customer persona is extremely important. Having a beachhead market that you go after is really important. And what job do they want you to get done for them? In other words, what problem do they want you to solve for them? So that's customer segments. Yep. What is archetypes? Archetypes is basically, what is that customer, if you had to define that customer, okay, and in detail, like what is their position, what market are they in, what do they do day to day, that is the person, that is the archetype, okay? So it might be 13 to 15-year-olds who play a lot of video games, who, something along those lines. But really narrowing that down. And then the value proposition. What is the value proposition you're bringing to that customer segment? What is the problem that you're solving? The channels. So through what channels? Sales, distribution, support? Are your customers going to want to be reached? Okay, how do you get to them? That's another thing you really need to think about is, and all this goes into building your business. The revenue stream, how are you actually going to make money? Okay, you got a great idea. Can you actually make money at this? What does that revenue model look like? Key partners. So, suppliers are a key partner, for example. Those types of folks. Software developer could be a key partner. A trucking company could be a key partner. Who are those key partners? What are you going to get from them? How are they going to help you succeed? Key activities. So manufacturing is a key activity you have to think about. How are you going to build this product if it's a physical device? How are you going to develop that product if it's a software or an app? So those are the types of things you have to think about there. Key resources, again, financial, physical resources, maybe a building might be a physical resource, financial resources, investment money. Where are you going to get the cash to run this business? That's another big deal. And then what are the costs associated with this business? What are your cost of goods to build the product? What other operating costs are you going to have with this business? So this is a very simple template. You don't have to go into a whole lot of detail, but it helps you start getting an idea and thinking through the business longer term. What are you going to do to make this successful? And finally, customer relationships, getting those customers, keeping those customers, and growing those customers. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So testing the problem. This is really the first thing you got to do is you got to get out of the building, as they say. You have to go out and actually talk to people who you think are your potential customers. Again, not talking to family and friends. You're talking to people out there who actually you think might buy your product, okay? If you don't do that, you'll never get a very good understanding. And I'm not talking 5 or 10 people. I'm talking 100 plus people to go out there. And this is the hardest part for entrepreneurs to do, is to get out and actually talk to people and ask questions. The most difficult thing. Nobody wants to do it. They want to believe, oh, I got the idea, it's going to work. So-and-so said it was good. This is the hardest part. And again, this is why 9 out of 10 startups fail. So what you're trying to learn is, who are your customers? What's their problem or opportunity? You're trying to understand that. How are they handling that now? How are they solving that problem now? If they've got a solution now that's okay, that's not causing them a lot of pain or problem, why would they buy your solution? Why would they spend twice as much money for your solution? There better be a very good reason for them to do that. And how important is this for them to solve? How does your solution fit that need? So you're thinking, you're not necessarily presenting your solution at this point, but you're talking to them and you're thinking about, okay, how does your solution fit and solve that particular problem that's out there? And what is the value that they're going to get out of this ultimately? Okay, that's important for the customer, for the potential customer, is what value do they perceive they're getting out of this? If they don't perceive they're getting a value, they're not going to buy your product, okay? And again, why will they buy your solution? If you can answer all of these questions here, then you're looking at, okay, you can be fairly confident that you have identified a viable customer base, a viable beachhead market that you can go after. And the next thing is to test the solution, to actually test the solution. So this is where you build what's called a minimum viable product, or you have some sort of something you can put in front of the customer. If it's an app, it might be as simple as just the design screens that you're working with. If it's a product, it might be a physical product. It might be a very early stage product that will help them understand what your solution does and how it's going to solve their problem out there. So this is testing the solution is the next thing. And this is where people, again, can lose their way. Even if they found out there are people out there that need the problem, the big mistake here is that people spend too much money at this stage and go too far in the development process, and they run out of cash before they have that product market fit that's out there. So one thing you can do is you can do a verbally describe the problem. You can go out and test this without even building anything, okay? Once you understand not while you're trying to figure out who the customers are and what the problem is, once you establish who those people are, you go back out, you can talk to them again and talk to them about your potential solution and how that's going to work. Describe the features and benefits. Find out if they've tried something similar in the past. More than likely, what you're offering is not unique. Okay, there's been other people out there who are trying the same thing at this point. So what is the purchasing decision? If they're going to make a decision about this product, what is the process they have to go through to buy this product? And what are the obstacles to purchasing? Okay, do they have a capital budget they have to go through if this is a capital expense? So what are the barriers for them to actually acquire this product? You want to lower those barriers as much as possible. Is it an attractive return on investment for these folks? Okay. If you can get an attractive, in other words, they're going to spend the money, but they're going to get a return on that, get payback on that, and get that relatively quickly, that's a win for everybody right there. And do they prefer a one-time purchase? So they want to buy everything up front? Do they prefer a SaaS model where they're paying monthly, a subscription model out there? That's something else. There are many, many strategies for pricing and purchasing that are out there. So Eric Reese did a really good job of defining a minimum viable product. MVP helps entrepreneurs start the process of learning as quickly as possible. Because remember, this is an iterative process. You're testing the market. It's okay to fail at this point. It's not necessarily the smallest product imaginable. In other words, it doesn't have to be the final version of the product with all the features, the final size of the product that's out there. But it's the best way to learn on how you can build a sustainable business with a minimum amount of effort. That's key, minimum amount of effort, minimum amount of cash burn that's out there. So I've got a video here. This is a really good, I like this video a lot because it talks about, okay, how to think about a minimum viable product. And keep in mind in this video, by the way, this is from several years ago when drones were very early stage. So people were still designing and building their own drones. They couldn't just buy something off the shelf and apply that. Okay, so this was a custom drone requirement, if you will. So let's see if we can watch this video. Can you hear that? Oops. It was playing a little bit earlier there. Oh, it's not?
Yeah, on my side.
You see the slide on there?
The slide.
Okay. Well, if that's a problem, then we'll just kind of talk through it. Let's see. I'll try one more thing here. Never do a video in a presentation.
Changes
with a series of what are called minimum viable products. Think of minimum viable products as small experiments that
Can't hear it on there. Okay.
Elicit responses about whether they like.
I'll describe it to them in a second.
They're the right customers, whether you have product market fit, eventually about whether you have pricing, etc. But you're trying to use these MVPs to get learning. And if you're an engineer, the concept of MVPs sometimes it seems so simple to you, you get it wrong. Because an MVP is not a smaller version or a defeatured version of the big product. The key insight is that minimum viable product or MVP is a shortcut to learning. Let's see a great example of what happens when we get the MVP wrong.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for taking this meeting.
Oh, great to meet with you, Dan.
So I'm working on a startup I'd like to tell you about.
Sure.
We're providing farmers with high precision imagery of their farmland so they can increase the yields on their farms. We're doing this by flying a drone with a hyperspectral camera over their farmland and giving them instantaneous feedback of what's really happening on the ground.
Well, that's exciting. How do you know farmers even care whether you do this?
So we've actually talked to hundreds of farmers and
You did what?
talked to farmers.
Wow.
We really understand what they need.
So
and
talk
what
to
they
the
want
customer.
from the product. So we think the next step is to build our first MVP and actually try it.
Great. What's the MVP?
We want to build one of the actual drones, put a hyperspectral camera on it, and run it for one farm.
Let's see. And how much is this going to cost?
So we need about $120,000 to seed.
So Dan, it seems to me that you did everything right until MVP. Didn't you just tell me that the thing that farmers care about is the data?
Yeah, that's true.
Did they care about whether it came from a drone or an airplane, or are you putting the camera on a stick running across their field?
No, they don't.
So if in fact, if the data isn't what they need, do you have a business?
No.
So don't you think the first thing you want to be testing is whether the data, regardless of how you put it together, is actually something that farmers would grab out of your hands, grab you by the collar and say, you're not leaving until I sign up for this service?
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
So my belief is the mistake you're making is a mistake all great engineers make, is thinking that the MVP is a smaller and quicker version of the final product. I'll contend in this case, want to shortcut the traditional MVP process and actually figure out if you're testing what the core of your business model is. Product market fit is not about the drone. Product market fit is about a class of farmers with high value crops with data that you think that's actionable for them. I'm guessing on fertilizer and diseases, etc. I'd be trying to figure out how to do that quickly. Can you imagine how you do that?
We could rent a plane and fly over the land with a camera.
You could do that in a day, couldn't you?
Yeah, for a lot less than $120,000.
I want to consider that.
Thanks.
All right, let me see if I can. Are we back on the, can you see the, oops, let me get
Yeah,
back.
we see the drone.
Okay.
And the online audience can hear the audio.
Okay, let me. Okay, can you hear me now? Can the online audience hear me
Yeah.
now?
Just, yeah,
Okay.
you can, if you go to the next slide.
Okay, so just as a quick summary, then this is for the folks who are tuning in remotely. So this is a startup who has looking to use a high resolution camera and a drone technology, so they can scan crop fields, high value crop fields, and provide data and feedback to the farmers, so they can make decisions on what to do about watering and fertilizing and that kind of thing. So it's not necessarily the farmer who's the customer doesn't care about the technology. The farmer cares about the data. But to test this business model and to see if this is going to work and give them the information that they want, instead of initially they were thinking about building the entire product, the drone, and putting this camera on there from scratch. And what they finally decided on to really prove this model out was just take the camera and take an airplane and fly the airplane over the fields and see if you can gather this same data and present it to the farmers to see if this is what they're looking for. Okay. So they already know customers or the farmers want something. They've talked to the farmers. They know this is a problem, but in order to determine if they want to give them the right data, instead of building the entire drone, they can just do this in a much less expensive way instead of developing the entire product by just taking a camera and going over the field. So I think that's a really good example of a minimum viable product. And the lessons here, be clear on your value proposition and what the MVP needs to demonstrate. That's really important. So the minimum viable product may not look like the final product. That's okay. It doesn't have to look like the final product. It just needs to demonstrate the value proposition. And think about doing whatever you need to do cheaply. Okay. So let me ask you guys a question. If you are designing let's take an example of let's say Greensy. Okay, let's take the Greensy startup that we talked about earlier, which was automating lawnmowers that were out there and you wanted to demonstrate that this would actually work, what might be an easier way to demonstrate and to show that this was, you know, to people out there to say, okay, is this something that you would buy? How would you go about doing that possibly? Without developing all the technology behind it, what would you do? Say again? Okay, so make a video. There you go. That demonstrates and shows exactly how it's going to operate. Yep.
I was gonna say something similar, but I was gonna add that maybe you have a room vacuum in a gym, and you're saying that your algorithms are driving this automated vacuum
Yep.
across this gym floor that represents a field. And
Yep.
you have obstacles on the floor representing the farmer's land, and it's maneuvering through that, but recorded on video.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yep. Any other? Yeah, that's good. Any other idea? Well, yeah, what about if you actually, you know, you convince the farmer or the landscaper that, hey, here's your mower. So I'm going to take control of your mower for the day. And when I'm done, you know, if your field will be cut, and just see how that goes. Okay. See how the farmer, you know, in other words, the lawnmower is going to be out there on its own, running without the farmer's labor that's out there. I'm going to be the one on there riding it and guiding it. I'm going to be learning about that process, you know, as it goes, to learn more about the technology and how that works and the obstacles that I'm going to run into. And the farmer, if the landscaper, you know, is going to be off doing other things. So the landscaper can begin to understand, okay, I can see that mower out there. All my guys are now repositioned and repurposed for doing other things. How much money is this really going to save me by doing this? Okay. So it's about the value proposition. You can assume the technology is going to work. Same thing with autonomous vehicle applications. If you had a pickup service where you're picking up people in an autonomous vehicle, you really need to design the autonomous vehicle from scratch to do that? Or could you just go get a car and black out the windows in the front, have no interaction with the customers, and just drive around? You have an app, somebody calls the app, you go and you pick them up. And instead of an Uber where you have the driver up there, they get in, there's no interaction, no customer interaction at all, just like you would do with a robotaxi. Okay. So think about ways to prove the market and how people are going to actually interact with your product out there without having to build the final technology. Okay. The more you can do that, the better off you're going to be. So a large percentage of your time is trial and error with an MVP. You're going to create an MVP, iterate, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board, do it again to prove out different parts of the technology that are out there. So at this point, you're going to get to, you know, once you've gone through this, testing the problem, testing the solution, the question is, should you continue forward or should you pivot? And if you have answered some really key questions, do people agree that you're solving a problem? Do you understand the business model? Is this big enough to really be a business out there? You might want to consider moving ahead at this point, okay? Moving to the next step, moving to the execute stage, if you will. So key things from your business canvas: have you found product market fit? Who are your customers? How are you going to reach those customers? Do you fully understand that? And can you actually make money at this business? Can you grow the business and actually make money? If your price point is too low and your cost of goods is too high, you don't want to move forward with that business. As much as you are in love with your technology, you do not want to move forward with that business at that point. And don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to change if you actually have to change. Here's a couple of really good examples in the industry. This is in the robotics industry, a company called Tortoise. They've actually pivoted a couple of times. And they have a system that started, or actually their second application was automated delivery, last mile delivery from the stores. Okay, totally automated, go to the front of the house, drop off the packages to that. Lots of challenges involved in that. They have this technology. They were getting a little bit of traction, but they were running into some challenges. So now what they have found out in that short of an area is a lot of the local stores are interested in selling their products. So they actually have converted the product, and they have another value proposition, which is a mobile store. Okay. So instead of actually delivering, now they're taking the products out there on their device and selling the products. So they're going around parks, going around neighborhoods, small business areas. And this seems to be a model that is going to help them continue to grow and to scale. Okay. So they were not afraid to pivot. This is a ATDC this is an Educate company at ATDC. They're being funded by the National Science Foundation. They still don't have a minimum viable product or a product to go to market with at this point. It's called Sky Mule. They're actually out of Peachtree Corners. And this is a device that is designed to, anybody familiar with concrete? Okay. All concrete has reinforcing steel in it. Okay. And that steel, these bars have to be tied together. Very labor intensive, takes a lot of time, very difficult to do. And they've come up with a way to do that in an automated fashion using robotics. Well, they started out with a drone, which makes a lot of sense because if you think about, areas or construction sites, that kind of thing, and going out there, the drone would fly over with this device and it would lower down and it would tie each of the joints there that you see in that matrix of reinforcing steel bar. Well, as they got out there, they found out that the drone really was not the best technology for them. The battery life was not good enough. There was a lot of challenges, a lot of technical challenges with doing that. And they now have pivoted to the four-legged robot, if you will. And they're utilizing that because it can step, it's pretty agile, and it can step through the rebar on the ground and tie the different areas much quicker. So it saves a lot of time in doing that. So they're early enough where they've actually pivoted their technology. The other thing they're doing, though, is they're using off-the-shelf technology. They have not this, what do you call these, arthropods or whatever they're called. And, they're taking off-the-shelf technologies. They're taking an off-the-shelf rebar tying device, and they're integrating those together. So they're not reinventing the wheel either. So that's an important thing to remember as well. Yep.
Excuse me, was their first system off the shelf?
Yeah. That drone is an off-the-shelf drone. And again, they're attaching the rebar device, the bar tying device, if you will, to that drone on there. But it's a lot of weight. And then the drone is very difficult for the drone to go down, tie, pick up, go around, go to the next joint. Much quicker for the arthropod to go and do that.
Can you say more about this application?
So are you familiar? So this is, let's say you're pouring this concrete floor right here, okay, underneath the carpet. And let's say it's about that thick in concrete. Every concrete slab has reinforcing steel in that slab, okay? And these are big steel bars. They're heavy, they're rough, they hurt your hands. And it has to be laid out manually. And then it has to be tied. Every one of these pieces at every joint has to be tied. And so it's very labor intensive, very time consuming to do. Okay. So the ultimate objective here is to find product market fit. And that's when you find a match between your customer segments and your value proposition, and you recognize the market is big enough for you to move forward. That is sort of the aha moment. And just to define it, so a product market fit is when you have a set of customers that are excited enough about your product to actually pay for it, not just to give it away on a trial basis. Somebody's actually going to pay you cash for that product. And then the customer base is large enough for you to scale that business, okay, for you to grow that business. That's the other side of that. So on the execution side, once you find that product market fit, and only once you find that, you're ready to execute. Okay, you're ready to actually spend money. Maybe you're actually ready to raise money, but somewhere you got to find cash to go out and do whatever it is. You can finance it yourself, you can bootstrap it, whatever you want to do with that. And that is the phase that involves creating the customer creation and the actual company building. And these are things like, again, we talked about from the business model canvas, the channels. How did your product get from your company to the consumer? Customer relationships. How do you get customers? So how do you get customers into your funnel? How do you keep those customers once you get them? And then how do you grow those companies? What are other offerings that you can provide to them? All of these are topics on their own that can take hours to discuss and develop all of those ideas. Let me ask you a question. Is it cheaper to get a customer, or is it cheaper to keep a customer? Cheaper to keep a customer. Once you get a customer, you have a customer acquisition cost. What investors call CAC, CAC, customer acquisition cost. You also have a lifetime value of that customer, LTV, lifetime value. It's a whole lot cheaper once you get them into your funnel and they're buying product to keep those customers than it is to lose those customers and then you have to get them back or go find new customers to replace them. So a lot of effort goes into keeping customers through customer satisfaction, promotions, maintenance, support, everything you can do for those customers. Those are the types of things that you want to think about. And then growing those customers. What other product offerings do you have for them? What other add-ons, do you have? What other options do you have for them? Those are the things you have to think about. And then your revenue model, there's all types of pricing revenue models that are out there that you can think about. Again, we talked about SaaS a little bit earlier, purchase, rentals, all types of things. But whatever that revenue model is, whatever the pricing is, it has to make sense for the business and it has to make sense for the customer. So all those things have to match up. In the robotics area, you guys may have heard of, has anybody heard of RAS before? Robots as a service. Okay, that's a thing these days. You've heard of cobots? Everybody know what cobots are?
Yes.
Okay. So, so collaborative robots you can easily bring into your factory to help do kind of machine tending. They can do palletizing. They can do all types of things. Lots of cobots in the marketplace these days. The question is, if companies want to try this out, they have to make a purchase and they are risk adverse. Okay, so they may not want to put out $10,000 or $15,000 for a cobot, and then all the time it takes to get that integrated just to see if it works. And then if it doesn't work, then they've lost that $10,000 or $15,000. So companies are now offering robots as a service where you can actually get the robots and the installation on a subscription basis. You can reduce that risk of cash outlay. And then you can see if that's going to be a scalable solution for you. If it's not, you move on. You do something else, you pivot. As a manufacturer, you pivot from that. The challenge for this is people that are providing RAS models is what are they doing for cash? How are they financing this? And there's other companies out there that provide that financing as well. So last parts of execution here, then we're talking about, and these are things, again, we could spend a lot of time on for each of these items, but as you get into execution mode, you have found product market fit. You're talking about finding the right co-founder, which is extremely important if you decide to go the route of the startup, building a strong team, leverage existing technologies where you can, don't reinvent the wheel. We talked about that. You're planning for scaling. You're building a vision and a mission that the company can be built around, that your employees are going to believe in as you get down the road. If you need investors, making sure you find the right investors. Finding the right investors, people that can connect you to make connections in the industries, help you gain customer traction. Those are the types of investors that you need, people that have expertise in that area. continue to pivot. You saw the, what was that? Tortoise, I think, was the one company that, you know, pivoted well after the fact. They made other pivots on down the road. You don't have to, it's not just about pivoting early, it's pivoting later as well. Continue to innovate, focus on your core competencies. If you're not if you have a product, for instance, that requires machining or manufacturing, are you going to go out and buy a CNC mill to produce or manufacture that product? Probably not. Okay. So you're going to go out to someone who already has that type of capability and farm that type of expertise out. Okay. So stay within your core competencies and, you know, plan and operate to KPIs, to key performance indicators. Okay. Set short-term 90-day KPIs, longer term 1 year, 3 year KPIs. Know where you're going with the business and perform and execute to that. Okay. That's what that's all about. And that's it. That's all we got. So thank you very much.
Questions?
Yep.
So if you get an investor, he's gonna give you, let's say, $500,000.
Yep.
Somebody probably is gonna write a contract or some agreement. So does I'm assuming, right? So does
Yep.
ATDC help you
Yep.
pick the person to help?
Yep. So we actually have a catalyst that's dedicated to, it's called Investor Connect at ATDC. And that helps companies find investors, because investors typically have an area of interest, you know, companies, specific companies and stages, types of technology that they're looking for. And then the terms of those agreements all have to be negotiated. So yes, ATDC helps. ATDC does not invest, but we help you through that investment process and manage that process. We just had last week, we just had a big event where we had 12 of our companies that we put in front of a room full of about 40 investors and let them pitch to those investors, and, you know, gives them the opportunity to pitch and learn from those investors and talk to them and that kind of thing. So good question. Yep. 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 So it depends, you know, I would encourage students. So there's a whole program. If you have a startup that you're interested in getting up and going, have you ever heard of the CreateX program? So that's the best way to get going as a student, which was not around when I was a student. We were just told to go graduate and go get a job. So now there's a lot more entrepreneurial benefits at Georgia Tech for students, and CreateX is a great program that basically will take you through this process. Okay. If you have an idea and you want to incubate that idea, and then there's even cash rewards at the end. If you get to the, you know, end of that, there's an investors, there's lots of, everybody heard of Chris Klaus, you know, the computer science building, I think is Chris Klaus. He's a Georgia Tech grad, made $1 gazillion. He's investing in Georgia Tech startups all the time through the CreateX program. He'll do 100K, 150K at a time.
Would you say that CreateX is more for undergraduate students, whereas like Venture Lab is more for graduate students and faculty?
So Venture Lab, which is another part, which adds to the confusion of the Georgia Tech ecosystem. So if you are in research at Georgia Tech, okay, if you're a professor or you're a researcher and you have an idea and it's based on Georgia Tech intellectual property, Georgia Tech patents, Venture Lab is there to support you the same way ATDC is there to support companies as well. So Venture Lab works within the Georgia Tech ecosystem, university ecosystem. ATDC is open not only to companies that have left Georgia Tech and licensed Georgia Tech IP, we're open to any companies that are within the state of Georgia.
One last question. I was thinking, I know there's like an ATDC community member, right? That you can, you used to.
That's the educate. That's the educate.
That is the educate.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It costs like $25 a quarter.
But when you're in that, you're not really in the portfolio, right?
No, until you're not in the portfolio, until you get to, you quit your day job and you're doing this full time and you get to accelerate. Okay. And that's when the reason for that is that's when people are really committed to a startup. Otherwise, you know, it will go on and on forever. But you have to go through when you're in Educate to get to accelerate. That's where we offer, we have a very intensive customer discovery class that we will take you through that process. Okay. We have a financial literacy class that will help you understand more about the economics and coming up with a feasible business model for doing all that. We can teach you about MVPs. We actually have a design lab there, design studio you can work with as well. So there's a lot of resources available as an Educate company that will help get you to the next level. Okay, and once you're Accelerate, that's when you can actually lease space at ATDC as well. And we have a couple of floors at ATDC. But there's like Entrepreneurs Night, the third Thursday of every month at ATDC. If you want to learn more about it there, you can come and meet some of the catalysts and that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there to do that kind of stuff. And I focus on robotics and manufacturing. Amazon Robotics actually sponsors my vertical. Amazon Robotics has an innovation fund, or it's actually the Industrial Innovation Fund, which funds early stage startups that are in their area of interest for warehousing and package handling type technologies. That's really where they're focused. It's like $1 billion fund. It's something unbelievable amount of money. So anything else?
Let's
All right. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
This is the final lecture for this semester, and I just wanted to thank all of you for attending. I see a lot of repeat attenders to this series, and so we should come back in the fall as well, and we'll have more details later for that. But I'm really grateful to all of you and to all the speakers, including you, Ward.
Yep, absolutely.
Especially Ward, because he was able to fill in on the cancellation. So thank you all, and have a great Monday.